to keep the good ship Lollipop afloat. Now, I don't know if you're even able to count to the numbers of a billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, and go on from there. But if you want to go to my website, stevequayle.com, and click on the Money Matters, at the very top of the Money Matters, there's a whole section that I'll be kind of referencing and giving you illustrations from tonight on how much money, truly $1 trillion is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, never in the history of this nation or any other nation has a country burned through so much cash, not manufacturing out of capital the money or out of savings, but just printing their way into oblivion. So I want to, get to some of the biggest news out there, and it all centers around money tonight. But before I do, I want you to know that I received a call from somebody who's in charge of FedEx security at a major airport. This was given to me almost, let's say, 15 minutes ago as I was preparing for the show. He said, Steve, all FedEx planes have gone on super heightened alert against hijackings and against, listen to this, you guys, armed assault against aircraft. So this was given to me just moments ago. It came in from the East Coast. I won't even tell you where. I've got to protect these people that give this kind of information. And I said to my friend, I said, what is your take on this? He said, boy, we've not seen this before. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that absolutely makes me, how should I say this, want to find another brick wall sometimes, and that's, when you beat your head on one and move to the next one, and when you finally run out of 4 walls, the only thing you've got left is the floor, and then if you get a stepladder, the ceiling, then you got to look for a new room. Well, the thing that is strident and just, how do I say this? Sometimes I'm cynical, and I apologize to that, but there's no way to deal with the mass mind control outside of cynicism sometimes, obviously through prayer and through calling on the living God. But being human, I find out that my drawbacks in that realm sometimes come to the forefront really quick. The thing that I'm referring to tonight is, are they going to raise the level? Are they going to lower the terror alert level? Now, somebody sent me an email saying, don't you think, Steve, that when these guys strike, they'll strike when everybody's basically got the caught asleep at the switch or napping? And they said, wouldn't it be in your mind when everything was low, meaning all the alerts were low? Well, that could be, and that's a very good thought, by the way. But I want to share something with you. I just got an email from Doug Hagman, because a lot of people give Doug a lot of garbage. I know they give me a lot of garbage. Let me read this to you, because it's the head of the Air Marshal Service Operations Center. In other words, the guys that are in charge of putting people on aircraft to make sure you get to where you're going and the flights get to where they're going. He said, Mr. Hagman, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and the analysts for the work you put into your site. I use this site daily in my duties at the Air Marshal Service Operations Center. I have found that your site provides up-to-date, factual commentary and analysis rather than the blathering drivel common to commercial media news organizations. In this age of increased operations, inter-service rivalries are still present, and information is jealously guarded to assure continued future budgets through operational fiats by the agency with the information. In other words, he's saying Agency A won't share it with Agency B because then they don't get their funding next year based on all the good stuff they came up with this year. He said this, I wish I could sign my name to this post, but due to the government policies, I must remain anonymous. And he signed it blank Federal Air Marshal. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and please understand why I'm trying to say this to you. I take this stuff serious. I hope you do. But I'm the one that coined the word. And again, I'm going to have a new section on my website, really good, by Holly and I have been talking about. We're going to put up Q statements. But my definition of the mass media, and this is the kindest thing I can say about it, is they're vomit brokers. They, how should I say this, excel at regurgitation. And so not only are these guys happy enough to have a fresh pile of vomit, but then everybody's got to add a few colors to it, kind of paint by numbers, and this is going to be really gross. I'm sorry. Anybody eating, you may want to skip this part. But the manipulation of the vomit, you know, they'll perfume the vomit. They will change the color of the vomit. Well, when it's all said and done, it's vomit. It's even beyond mushroom food. So, again, I want you to know that the people out there that we hear from daily, Doug and I, these are people, and there are some fabulous people out there that are fully aware of who's behind the terrorism. I'm not talking about the average, you know, scapegoats, and they're doing their best to make sure that the maximum amount of life can be saved. And again, that's all I can do. I'd like to think that, you know, since I realize that the good ship Lollipop is going down, just like the Titanic, I, for one, want to shut the band up and get people into their life rafts and lifeboats ahead of time. So again, I want you to know that I share this with you for your benefit, to so you understand. We just don't sit around, you know, what would I say, drinking tequila, coming up with this stuff. I don't drink it, neither does Doug, by the way. I'm just saying whoopee, but, you know, it's not the tequila influence. Although there have been times. But listen, tonight I want to talk about just the sheer financial manipulation that's gone on in the Japanese market. It was once stated that Sony stood for Standard Oil of New York. And if you look at the history of Sony, Sony was one of the biggest, most profitable, and still is, corporations in the world. After World War II, big money moved into Japan, and with the Japanese work ethic and some very, very brilliant individuals, after all, we fought them in World War II and knew what they were capable of. The big mega corporations like Sony and Matsushita, and then following everything from Honda, Toyota, Kawasaki, I mean the biggest of the big, they came on the scene in an incredible manner. When the Nikkei Dow, the Japanese stock market, was at 36,000, there was so much money flowing in Japan that people were absolutely ordering drinks with gold dust in them. And I'm talking real gold dust. I'm not talking, you know, gold plating or gold foil. Then, like any excessive society that has so much money they don't know what to do, if you can believe this, the city of Tokyo was valued at more than the entire real estate in the United States of America. So you knew something had to give. Now I'm going to talk to you about the intervention this week of 3 trillion, T-R-I-L-L-I-O-N, yen. Listen to this. It's from Reuters. Japan, worried that a strong yen could hurt an export-led recovery in its economy, spent about 3 trillion yen, 28.3 billion US dollars, in the first 2 days this week to hold the currency down, a market source said on Wednesday. That figure compares with some 20 trillion yen, or 188 billion, spent on yen-selling currencies market intervention the whole of 2003. So, just looking at that, everyone, it's amazing that they spent in 2 days what they normally would have spent in 2 months. The source of the Bank of Japan, acting on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, sold about 2.6 trillion yen on Monday. Despite the massive intervention, the dollar-Japanese yen ratio hit a 3-year low of 106 yen later that day. About 400 billion yen was spent on Tuesday when the dollar touched a low of 106.09 yen, according to sources. In late Tokyo trade on Wednesday, the dollar was holding just above the level at around 106.20 yen. The Japanese authorities are thought by some analysts to be desperate to prevent the dollar from falling below 105 yen, since that would trigger heavy option-related selling of the U.S. unit. But traders say it's excuse me. I'm sorry, but traders say it's only a matter of time before the yen breaks 106. In a move to secure more interventions, the Ministry of Finance announced last month that it would raise the borrowing limit on its currency intervention account to 140 trillion yen in the fiscal year starting next April from 79 trillion yen. As a stopgap measure to avoid a funding crunch before Parliament approves the raising of the borrowing limit, the Ministry has arranged a repo deal with the Bank of Japan in which can get funds by selling foreign bonds to central bank and buying the paperback at a later date. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just give you how much a trillion is, and this is on my website. If you were to take a trillion pennies, okay, and a trillion, again, is 1,000 billion, you would have a cube that's 273 feet by 273 feet by 273 feet of pennies. The total weight of those pennies would be, you ready for this? This is an amazing number, 3,125,000 tons. If you stack the pennies on top of each other, they would go to the moon. No pun intended. Actually, 986,426 miles. If you laid the pennies flat, touching each penny, they'd cover an area of about 90,000 acres. Now, understand just what the Bank of Japan did. You'd have to multiply this by 3 to get a feel. Now, just imagine, if you will, that obviously you can change the amount of zeros on whatever currency, and it's going to be an amazing event. Now, hey, Steve, could you check all the streams? I'm getting massive, like 10 or 12 emails coming in right now that there are no streams up.
Steve,
is that, yeah?
There was a burp. It's back up. There was a short burp, but it's okay now.
Okie doke. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we start to talk about trillions and trillions of dollars, if you take the entire value of the United States, everything you and I earn and everything we own, let me say this, that the gross domestic product right now is about around $10 trillion. I saw recently where they valued all of Britain's real estate holdings, et cetera, in $10 trillion. So what I've noticed, and I think I did a whole show on this way back in the hidden past, I believe that it was the plan of the international financiers, and still is, to get a massive world and global default almost concurrently. That's what the New World Order boys will need to issue their ultimatum. Can you imagine everybody going broke almost simultaneously and concurrently, at least in the world of paper money and paper assets? If you understood who owns all your mortgages and my mortgages, our mortgages, I think we'd all basically be real, how should I say this, upset, because in essence, everything that we have value on, the level of debt against it is anywhere from 3 to 10 to 1, not counting derivatives. Now, the derivative market, which are financial instruments, or basically IOUs in the computerized matrix worlds of international offset of liability, are somewhere in the $250 to $300 trillion, or a quarter of a quadrillion dollars. Now, somebody said, well, you're talking real money. Well, yes, we are, and I've got to share with you that this is a unique, unparalleled, not only set of numbers, but set of circumstances. So as we come to understanding how much of this stuff is manipulated, it becomes obvious that we're talking numbers that simply, how do I say this, people can't relate to. It's tough to relate to trillions when a $50 bill makes the difference between groceries this week or groceries not, meaning no groceries. So, well, you and I stay focused so much on the vomit that we're presented day in and day out in the mainstream magazines, newspapers, blah, blah, blah. You've got to understand that the real movers and shakers do recognize what's going on, and that's why, again, we're trying to get everyone up to speed on, look, we can't compete with the big guys, and it's just really, really amazing we can follow them. Let's see this. Okay, thank you, Bart. I'll read that afterwards. And by the way, I'm taking wellness formula. Somebody sent me a suggestion for some cough medicine. If you would see my office, which is normally a mess, I got herbal stuff. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I expect to see tree branches out my ears. And I thank those of you who are praying for me. This has been a really rough time. And by the way, we have been sprayed. Before I and everybody else I knew came down with this, we were sprayed in Bozeman beyond anything. And look, I have thousands of photographs that people have sent me from around the country, literally, in a giant plastic container. And I've got, all the photographs I've taken. So when I say it's beyond what I've ever seen, I've seen it all. And I'm not talking about today, but it's really amazing to me just how many people got sick in the current spraying, and again, reporting in from all over the country. As you know, when your body fights off any infection, your immune system gets keyed up, and so I'm convinced that what they do is they spray, and then they wait for all the reports to come in from the hospitals to see how effective they are. Like I said, I don't know if it's political correctness killed us, which will be on our obituary, or basically just how they were too dumb to live. Maybe that's a better statement. It's kind of amazing to me that more people haven't put two and two together, as if we don't have enough stuff to worry about in a given day. Now, Dave sent me this email last night, and it was too late for me to deal with it, but I want to deal with it first off the part of the show tonight. He says this: when you advise that gold will go up $50 a silver will explode when the powers that be pull the plug and the dollar is sold, we should see the Dow crash. That's what you'd normally think, but not necessarily. The reason why you won't see that, Dave, is due to the massive, at the first sign of a worldwide liquidity crisis, the Fed, meaning the Federal Reserve, has plans, and they'll do it through to sustain the dollar at all costs and to keep the market up. Is there a place where it will panic? Absolutely. But at first, ladies and gentlemen, you can see $50 moves, and you can see 50 cent to $1 moves in silver in one move, and the stock market can go up. It's like the other day when gold went up, the stocks went up 125 points. Now, here's what he says: what do you expect and therefore recommend if one holds non-hedged gold and silver shares? Jim Sinclair recommends holding certificates, but will that be enough? Well, first of all, I agree with Jim Sinclair, and it's fascinating. I called in Bozeman, Montana, the big brokers. You got them in your town, I got them in my town. Only one of them would let you take your stock certificates, and in order to do so, you have to pay them $200. I said, why is that? You ready for this one? Administration fees. But he says this, Dave says, will the gold and silver shares crash as well? No. But again, you've got to have them, because what happens when a brokerage firm buys stock, let's say they buy 1 million shares of American Barrick, and American Barrick is, $50 a share for, this is just an illustration, and they hold $50 million worth of American Barrick stock. And let's say somebody says, well, we want to go out and we want to hedge that, and we believe Barrick's going to 60. We want to buy another $200 million worth of Barrick stock, or 4-to-1. They take the pool of stock and they hedge it, and they basically speculate with it. So unless you have the physical shares of stock in your hand, you could literally be smiling one second and crying the next, because if XYZ firm that held your stock goes broke, you've got to jump through some major hoops to get your stock. You've got to verify, and then you've got to understand that the security insurance fund now will only cover, I believe it's moved down to $500,000 of all your stock, because, ladies and gentlemen, a stealth maneuver of horrendous financial Armageddon proportions took place a couple of weeks ago. The people that cover stock portfolios against the sort of thing I'm talking to you about, another thing, basically put a limit, a ceiling of $500,000. Now, that's a lot of money to some people, but to other people, that's pocket change. So I would say this: to me, that was a sheer indication that they're anticipating the meltdown of a lot of brokerage firms. So, let that be your heads up to really get with it. And so I hope I've answered your questions. Here's what I'm telling everybody: paper, and again, let me share with you. I've got 3 very intelligent women that have made, I would say, intuitive and intelligent decisions to buy the metals when they were much lower. And the three ladies, and by the way, I'm not picking on you men, but the three ladies have done fantastic. They've got to be cumulatively up at least 30%, if not higher. That's not bad in a couple months. And that's at real pricing. So I noticed one thing about all of them. They had paper, but independently, they said, well, we were woken up, we have an uneasy feeling, and they moved. And, you know, this is what I'm trying to tell everyone. You've got to basically pull up your bootstraps, pull up your suspenders if you wear them, or gird yourself up. There's a good biblical term. And you've got to have the ability to say, look, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. I'm going to get out of harm's way. Does it not scare, and I'd like to hear some emails or see some emails, I'd like to read them on the air so everyone can hear them, of what you guys think of, you know, and here's what I'd like somebody who's got everything they pretty much own invested, and how you sleep, and I'm not picking on you, I just want to know how you can sleep at night knowing that your whole future, how do I say this, is pretty much in difficult and perilous times. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I have talked to different people, and they say, well, I'm just rolling the dice. Well, I say, listen, wouldn't you rather have it come up 7 than snake eyes? So what I'm trying to encourage everyone, is to look at the numbers, whether the Bank of Japan is intervening, or we're going $16 billion a day some days, where the Federal Reserve is supporting the U.S. market. I mean, these are horrendously huge numbers. And again, understand that the globalists know that they have to crash the world in order to bring about a world currency and a world change. How close are we to that? I don't know. But very, very soon, we're all going to know. I'll do this, Walter, when we come back from the break. Walter says, please, just a few words about the safe room filter you have on your website. Thank you. I can tell you this, Joel Skousen, Holly listened to him. I didn't last night. Joel is one of the smartest men I consider. I don't agree with him. He doesn't agree with me on everything, but he's a very, very smart man. His grandfather, Cleon Skousen, wrote, The Naked Capitalist or The Naked Communist. I think he wrote both. And the thing is that Joel was on George Norrie, I believe, last night, talking about just how close we are to a total nuclear decimation, annihilation of the United States. And he blamed, and it's interesting, it was deja vu when Holly told me this, he blamed Russia and China as being behind it, instigating it. Now listen, both Russia and China hold enough U.S. dollars that if they decided to sell the dollar immediately, they could pull it off. They could do it in such a way, too, that it could be based on some kind of an altered incident in the world markets, and they could pull this off to the point where there would be mayhem and chaos in this country. And before they attack, they want, and listen, I've read enough Soviet war plans and documents, and Jeff Nyquist and others have told you about this for a decade. Joel Skousen talks to you about this. But the Soviet war policy is in full effect, everyone. Glasnost, perestroika, and the meltdown of, or the breakdown or takedown of the Berlin Wall, that was all for outward consumption. And now they've been able to do, by what I would call treason within our government and financial promiscuity within our Treasury officials, to totally bring us into a place of dependence on them to support our currency. Now, sure, we can go martial law, we can go to all the different executive orders in place, but there's never been a time that we can say that we're experiencing the threat level that we're at right now in the economic arena. So it's really important. Steve Melching, my producer, just sent me this. Read a new article on rents about Yellowstone. That's the Idaho Observer. What that Idaho Observer article was a lot of mismatch of everything that went out falsely this summer. For the record, ladies and gentlemen, Wyoming and Grand Teton Park is south of the south entrance of Yellowstone, and they had 3 earthquakes, and they had a 5.0 and a couple of 4.0s in pretty close succession. So immediately, people went out and said, oh, Yellowstone's getting ready to blow, and of course, it'll kill everything within 600 miles, blah, blah, blah. Again, understand, I'm in Bozeman. I am 80 miles north of Yellowstone. I know so many people. I have photographed that, and it's not again what I know, it's who I know. And the thing is I'm just telling you point blank that this is nothing at this point to be concerned with. Somebody sent me an email, one of my listeners, saying, well, don't you think this is more important than terrorism? No, because it's not the same issue right now. Do I believe the supervolcano will go off someday? Sure. Do I believe it could be helped along with the correct planting of nuclear weapons in the correct areas? Probably. But at this point, everyone, this is just, again, the Idaho Observer is just rehashing a bunch of what I call nonsense stuff. For instance, in that article they were talking about it smells like sulfur. You cannot get away from the smell of sulfur. Trees are dead around the hot pots. Well, that's what makes Yellowstone so unique, since it has 60% of the world's hydrothermal features. And so what I'm saying to you is the only thing going on in Yellowstone is one pompous rear end of a federal judge shut Yellowstone down to snowmobilers and snow coaches, thereby destroying an entire community's livelihood. Thousands of people come to West Yellowstone. Actually, West Yellowstone, Montana, is considered the snow capital I think at one point it was considered the snowmobile capital of the world. And now, because of a pompous rear-end judge who even went over the president's authority, we have no snowmobiles going into Yellowstone unless you go in, I think, in caravans of 8 or 10 escorted by an official guide. And I can share this with you. The animals range outside the park, inside the park. I've snowmobiled in Yellowstone where you can come up on a buffalo and be literally 6 inches away from its butt and just pass them, or, elk along 5 feet away from you. So, the deal is, oh, it's scaring the animals. No. What it is the BS, crap-headed environmentalists, again, just, how should I say this, working their best. It's not enough to kill access to the park or the national park. They've got to destroy the surrounding communities. So that's the only thing going on in Yellowstone that's explosive at this minute. So I just wanted to address that and tell you, again, much more stuff to worry about at this point than that. And I think it's important for you all to just see the nature the nature of the information that comes out to take your minds away from what I would say are the pressing and relevant issues. Now, let me read you a couple more thoughts, and I'll talk about the filter after the break. Listen to this. This is on Bill Bonner, Gary North, The Daily Reckoning, and how to identify a bubble. And this is a fabulous overview. It's on our website. They say, what will happen in 2004? Well, we won't even try to tell you. The best we can do is try to figure out what ought to happen. And even then, we're appalled by our own arrogance. We cannot know what the gods intend. All we can do is try to make out dimly the right and wrong of it. We begin today's remarks with a disturbing question. Now listen to this. Ask yourself this. Why should an American earn 10 times as much as a Chinese laborer? Does he work that much harder? Is he so much smarter? Does he have some unseen virtue blessed by the gods with extra spending power? He earns more only because his parents and grandparents and great-grandparents worked hard, saved their money, built machines and factories, accumulated wealth and knowledge, and avoided blowing themselves up in wars, hyperinflation, revolution, and socialist delusions. I would also say these guys obviously aren't writing from a Christian perspective, but it was because we were blessed beyond any nation in the world. But now, on an American, we squander our savings, we mortgage our children's future, and willingly participate in extravagant mass hallucinations that we borrow and spend until we all get rich. We will build an American-style democracy in ancient Nineveh. Our kind friends the Chinese will pay our bills. Ought such a man prosper? The remarkable thing, says a report from the Rocky Mountain News, is that despite the furious pace of home refinancing, Other forms of consumer debt did not go down. You'll remember, dear reader, that no less an authority than Alan Greenspan, and as if there is a less an authority, we can't think of whom he might be, told us what a great thing mortgage debt was. He said it allowed homeowners to switch from expensive credit card debts to less expensive mortgage debt, with their balance sheets thus reinforced. They could add another few pounds of spending without the whole thing giving away. Well, the Fed chief was wrong about this, as he was about everything else. While the average household added to its mortgage debt, it added to its other debts too. Credit card debt per household has grown to $7,000, leaving out mortgages. Consumers' debt has doubled in the last 10 years to $18,700 per household. Millions of families live paycheck to paycheck, says a news item, with no provision for risk. Go back to what I said a few minutes ago. International elitist bankers and their cronies own your mortgage, my mortgage, those of us who have mortgages, and when the time comes, they will pull the plug and they will issue the what we'll call the maximum dictate. Either kiss their butt, take the mark of the beast, or you're out. And if you think that's so far away, let me just tell you this, that in the worlds of high finance and high, how should I say this? When I say high finance, I'm talking the billionaires and above. These guys are all openly now talking about there's nothing that can stop them and no one that can stop them. Now, I'm aware of the scriptures that said pride goes before a destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. But these people, remember, they don't fear God because they think they are God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a break. Hopefully I can keep the coughing down to a minimum. We come back, I'll talk about the safe room filters because it's getting time to consider that we're in for a glowing future and not in the way of being happy, joy. We'll be right back. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, and to make Walter happy, Walter, I hope this will help you. He's asking about a safe room filter or a shelter filter. Now, this is the single most important consideration, obviously, of any kind of planning you've got to do. You have to have a safe room filter or a shelter filter. Now, what I want to talk to you about is the American Safe Room filter, and this is a neat deal. It can run on 120 or 220, 12 volt. Should power fail, this system automatically goes to battery backup and has a second backup in the way of a manual bellows pump, and it's really neat. It's kind of a big circular accordion on the top of it. Now, the ASR-48 includes a war gas absorber filter, which works on any of the nerve agents. It's got a certified carbon filter and a nuclear-grade HEPA filter that keep out the fallout particles. It's effective in removing everything from hydrogen cyanide, phosgene, mustard gas, sarin, ricin, VX, nuclear fallout, radioactive iodine, and all the biotoxins. With this unit, ladies and gentlemen, you can get the hose kit with a 7-foot connecting hose. You can get, if you want, additional blast valves, which most people won't need. You can get overpressure valves and test kits and everything. These are specially priced at $1,595, $1,595. I only have 3 of them in stock. I believe American Safe Room is, how do I say this, producing like mad. So these are the items that it's the single, in my opinion, most overlooked and important item that you can have. Now, people use these even in their mobile homes, forgive me, not mobile homes, but motor homes. I know of people that have put these into their Suburban. They have sealed their engine compartment. They have sealed all the doors and windows. I mean, they've gone to a specialty car manufacturer that can make your car literally airproof. They have put these in the back, kind of on the opposite side of the fuel tank with the input, and then they hook the blower and the fan part of this unit up to their battery. They've got solar chargers on the roof of their cars. I'm not putting you on all this stuff. But those of you that don't want to mess with that, again, all you can do is just order the ASR-48. You obviously, there are more expensive units out there, the LUWA, L-U-W-A, that come from Switzerland. Those things can cost upwards of $8,000. I don't know of a better priced filter. You go on my website, hit shop, and then you can go to the Safe Room filter. For those of you that are concerned with biological and chemical warfare, and don't want to build a shelter right now, you can go to the website and you can go to a specific product that we carry, and it's kind of a neat deal because it's a portable biochem safe room, giant, if you will, a tent with its own filter unit and power unit and manual bellows. And this is a neat deal, everyone, because this is what the military is using, and they're designed in Israel. Each system creates a positive pressured environment and utilizes a multi-stage filtration process to remove all MBC contaminants. And these are in, they're available, but they're never available when the panic comes, and they're $3,295. For those of you that do not have nuke alerts, I would again encourage you to call Shane Connor at 830-672-8734. Look at Shane's entire website, KI for You. There's a massive plethora of different products there, everything from radiation meters, survey meters, MREs, everything that you would need. And Shane even sells complete portable fallout shelters that are made out of a steel culvert that have been modified with an entrance and an exit, and they're really inexpensive, relatively speaking. I think they're, in the $4,000 or $5,000 price range, and you bury those, and you've got a complete fallout shelter, blast shelter, and everything. And those of you who are worried about, the earth changes, etc., and the high winds that we're going to get, and when I say high winds, I'm talking 200 to 300 mile per hour winds, first in microbursts and then in sustained winds of that. And I don't know, those of you who live in Tornado Alley or have ever seen a hurricane, it's one thing to have a few minutes of winds that powerful. It's another thing to have sustained winds that powerful. So please, everyone, go to my website, stevequayle.com, go to shop. When you see shop, you'll see safe room filter, you'll see biochemical protection tent, you'll see the Air 8 emergency mask. We're literally selling hundreds and hundreds of these masks because it's the cheapest deal that you can carry with you. It's like a surgical mask with carbon impregnated into it, and it's the most effective mask of its type. They're for 10 of them, it's $30. So please, again, consider this, that you've got a time to prepare, and the time is becoming lesser and lesser. Think back 5 years. Think about what you expected then, or even 4 years. Prior to 2000, the Y2K event never happened to the degree that people thought it would. But the point is, it was sure a time to prepare everyone, and most people bailed. I'm not kidding you. Most people that I know that prepared for Y2K threw in the towel, said game over, and went back to just, comme ci, comme ça. Whatever is will be, whatever will be is. So we're right at that time where you've got the opportunity to change and make a difference, and the ball is in your court. For those of you that still want to get in on some good precious metals deals, there are deals. Listen, let me explain something to people about gold and silver. Nothing goes up straight up unless it's the blow-off or it's the blowout phase. So you're going to expect, and I've said this so many times, but I really need to say it again, you've got to expect extreme movements when you get into uncharted territories. Gold's at a 15-year high. Silver is at, a 10-year high? And right now there's going to be consolidation. When silver busted through $6 and went straight up, it didn't have time to catch its breath. So there's going to be retracing of at least 50% of its move. And let me give you the markets right now in the aftermarket, because I think it's important. A lot of people depend on my show, and because I don't stay sequential to get the prices, they miss the prices. Right now, according to Kitco, gold is $419.90, silver is $620, platinum $848, and palladium is $204. But again, the palladium quotes on Kitco are suspect because they automatically put themselves at least $5 to $10 behind the market every night. That's to cover themselves in case there's a $5 or $10 move overnight, so that they stay par. It's just good business to do that. Let's go here. Signs of the times. This is Nancy. Okay, this is interesting. Steve, I saw something today that I have not seen since I was in my teens, the 60s. At a local hospital, all the entrances had signs that stated, "No children under 12 years of age were permitted." I should not have been surprised, but I still was. A nurse in my radiation oncologist's office said it was because of the flu. Nancy in Peoria, Arizona. I think so. But, again, everything is new. Let's see what this says. Okay, Greg says this. Seems to me an attack while we're at high alert means a quicker transition to martial law. Lots of machinery already online. Okay, let's go here. How credible. This is from Dennis. He said, Steve, how credible is a nuke threat on New York City for 2/24, February 2nd, with a countdown going on, excuse me, on some Arab terrorist site? Well, I can only tell you this, that the international financial community, unrelated to terrorism and the stuff I typically talk about, the rumors are flying in that realm, and it's interesting because the rumors are coming from the Arab financiers. So, how credible? Listen, they want New York and they want it bad. If you take out New York, you take out the New York Stock Exchange, and God forbid that happens, let alone taking out Chicago and the Chicago Board of Trade, everything comes to a screeching halt. So I think it's important that we get this. Let's go here. Drudge headline. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Bob. Drudge is reporting within the last 10 minutes, according to the International Monetary Fund, U.S. deficit threatens global economy. Something no one has ever addressed, and I'll be the one to address it. Have you ever thought what would happen if the United Nations got together with all of its member nations and decided to say that the United States has put the world in a position of financial collapse, not the United States, the world in financial collapse, and something had to be done? Have you ever thought about that? Now, what Bob is telling me, that the Drudge report is stating that the IMF, the U.S. deficit threatens global economy, that's something that, quite candidly, I think that a lot of people have never even begun to entertain in their cerebral cortex. In other words, they've never got it together. So I would encourage you just to pay real specific attention, because my guess is that prior, and I'm just talking out loud, okay, obviously, but I'm just brainstorming with you tonight, I really believe that they would have to begin to go on an international slam the dollar campaign, so that when all nations bail simultaneously, because they love us so much, that they had already been justified in the world's press. Now, remember this, the way you see America through U.S. Vomit sheets, meaning newspapers, magazines, and talk radio, and a lot of mainstream talk radio, and also television news, is that's not the way the world sees the United States. When you read Reuters, Reuters overseas versus Reuters in the U.S., you can't believe the scathing that's going on and the discussion that's going on about the United States. It's interesting. Listen to this. Steve, my producer, said this. Steve, this is really weird. We were up for hours before you started tonight. Everything was running perfect. The minute you come up, we are hit with a denial of service attack on all streams. He said, you're hitting a nerve with somebody. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I guess I've got to just say this. I'm sorry, but I'll tell you something. Somebody doesn't like the topic of tonight. Actually, somebody doesn't like every night. So it's kind of interesting. How do I say this? It's like they always blame. They always ignore the reality of what's right before them. So I can't tell you who it is that's messing with me, but the point being is that there's obviously somebody messing with me. Here's what Frank says. He says, my wife and I watch the mainstream finance channel most of the time to see if there's any news about gold and silver. Very, very little is mentioned about gold. Silver is never spoken of at all. They are persuading the moron masses to buy the paper, absolutely. So, you know, the thing is, you're never going to hear the truth on the mainstream, because the mainstream is a condition, you know, a conditioning mechanism and vehicle. And guess what? The reason you guys and you ladies out there are listening to this show is because you get information here that you don't get anyplace else. So, you know, it becomes incumbent upon us to not only be aware of the information, and you know, sometimes I wonder, Jesus prayed to take the scales off the blind man's eyes, but I used to tell people we need to pray that God would take the scales off our hearts, because it's kind of like the scripture, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is at hand. Well, the valley of decision is that point where you have to be persuaded that not only is God God, not only will He take care of you, but you've got to be persuaded that it's better to be on the Lord's side with Moses than on the earthquake side with those who perished. A little Old Testament illustration there. So it's amazing. Again, James and others, Steve, my producer, just came on and told me that we had a DNS, denial of service attack, the minute I started my radio show tonight. So somebody is messing with us. And I got to tell you an interesting thing. You're going to love this. Most of you are most of you aware of Dow Jones? I don't think I've talked to you about this. Well, they own oh, good night. They own the company that rates businesses, and I can't think of the name right now. It's a business rating service, and you can find out who owns the company, what's going on. I received a call from the business rating company, and I can't think of the name. I've got a mental blackout. The biggest company in the world. And this guy, you're going to love this. He goes, and I promise you, I am not making this up, because I've got these guys' accents down. Mr. Quayle, we would like to talk to you about your account. Your account is very interesting. We have not seen such activity on anybody's account in our system. What is going on? Will you please call us at 1-800-422, you know, and on and on and on. Pretty good. I mean, that's almost identical. I haven't called them yet. Oh, Dun & Bradstreet. Thank you. Dun & Bradstreet. Now, here's what's going on. I have watched my hits go up into the millions of hits, okay? But I notice, and because of being able to track the software that my internet service provider can track, we are getting a massive amount of curiosity. Guess what? From the Arabian States, okay? And we're also getting a massive amount of curiosity from servers that I can directly relate to, how should I say this? I must be great entertainment in the East Coast in certain areas of the defense establishment. Typically, and I'll share this, typically the attacks that I have undergone on denial of service attacks have come out of California in the China Lake region. You know, and if you guys know what goes on in China Lake, you can figure out that. But the point is tonight, you know, I'll try and do some tracking, but it appears that with the interest in, quote, me and my company, and please, this is bizarre to me. And by the way, that little voice imitation I did, that is no kidding. And the guy is probably trying to tell me, oh yes, I live in Los Angeles. I guarantee he's in Bombay or Peking or someplace, Beijing, but he's not in the United States. And as you know, the information technology shift of jobs overseas, there's nothing that makes me more, how should we say this, vocal? How's that for a good word? Than when I get a call from American Express or somebody going, this is another one. Could you please call us? We would like to talk to you about an insurance policy on your card. Should something happen to you, we'd like to talk to you. And so I called the guy back. And I said, so where are you now? Are you in Bombay? Are you in Madras? And by the way, I get these now about every other day. And so now it's a game with me. And, you know, the point that I'm trying to make, everybody, is if you wonder why 4 million Americans are unemployed, since the current administration took over. It's because no one evidently, or I take that back, I was going to say no one was smart enough to see it happening. No, they were very smart, and they knew what it was going to do to this country's ability to keep us employed. Now, look, our manufacturing's been destroyed. Our morals have been destroyed. Our Constitution is gone. You can say it still exists. I can tell you this, based on the laws of this land and federal judges being gods, little g's, it doesn't exist anymore. The presidential decision directives, executive orders, and what's going to happen is amazingly, how should I say this, in place for the big event. Coupled with Tommy Franks' statement, any weapon of mass destruction attack would result in the end of this experiment we call liberty. And I think he said 200 years. So, you know, we're there, and I just got to tell you, the intensity of all this stuff becomes greater and greater. And if you'll pay attention to my shows, ask yourself this: how can it be that everybody else is up before me and after me with no problems, and the minute I come up, look, I don't think I'm anybody special, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm telling you is they absolutely must be, how should I say this? There's something I say or something I do that is not meant to be out there. You know, the point is that it's amazing to me that this happens, and again, it's important. Here's somebody from Tony. What does Tony say? Okay, this is a good idea, and this is why you always track where the bureaucrats are. Okay, it's called the bureaucrat, or it's called the rat watch. Okay, wouldn't it be prudent to watch the major players in New York when the Rockefellers and Coffee and On and others of the like leave New York? I would think something big will happen shortly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course you can do that, and most of us don't have the ability to follow those guys, but there are people that listen to this broadcast, there are people in Washington, D.C., all over the place that keep their eyes open. And you know, I just tell them, look, you see people bailing out, please give me a call. You know, and it's amazing. You know, and Tom, I understand the basis of NBC Prep. Please forgive me, but you haven't been, you know, on this show for 10 years. I did 3 years of it. It's probably time to visit it again. But the reason why I don't deal with that every night is because, quite candidly, when I was doing it, people said they didn't want to hear that. And when you're a talk show host, you try and get the subjects that the people want to listen to so you can provoke them. So I'm not avoiding the NBC Prep issue. It's just, with all due respect, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was traveling around the country yelling, writing newsletters until the pages came out my eyeballs, and I got to share this with you. You've got to convince people of the threat before they'll make any effort to protect themselves. So that's just an answer to your email. Let's do this, see what this is. Okay, just another internet report. Walter, what did you say? Thank you. Walter wanted me to talk about the safe room filters. Let's see what this says. Okay, Diana, I'll call you tomorrow. I'll call you first thing in the morning. Let's see this. Just more reports on tonight. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to share this with you. I am more than aware that there comes a time when this country will no longer be what you thought it was going to be. And again, you know, I have kids. I'm sure you have kids. I got a bunch of kids, and I just look at them sometimes, and like probably every parent in history, you look at your progeny, if you will. You look at your heritage and you say, what will become of them? And, you know, I've got to tell you something. When I listened to Tatiana Korajnia with Rick Wiles' interview, and she was talking about Americans would be naked in the streets and stuff, and just because something that's told you is going to happen, you know, in the years ahead doesn't happen tomorrow, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. As a matter of fact, maybe someone could do this for me, and I used to know it, but I forgot. I did a study on all the prophets on literally how long the Old Testament prophets prophesied before the event happened. And normally, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 70 years. If you even take the destruction of the temple by the Romans and Jesus' statement in Matthew 24, that was somewhere around 40 years, a generation. But what I'm saying is that very seldom, with the exception of Nineveh, and again, forgive me, but I think that Nineveh was the only place I could find a 40-day time limit to its destruction. Abraham obviously interceded with God and the angel of the Lord to spare if there be just a few righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah. So the angels ended up taking Abraham and the righteous out, and it was only a handful, and before the destruction fell. But a question that I've been asked, do I believe that God will warn the Christians in New York City? Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, but the only ones that will be listening are the ones that will, how do I say this, the only ones that are praying and lifting up their voices and, how should I say this, believing God, they're the only ones that are going to be in a provision to hear or a place to hear, because everybody else will be too busy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for tonight and the interruption, but it just goes with the territory. Please, God bless you, and really give some consideration to giving me a call tomorrow, 1-800-424-7870, and I'll try and get you out of harm's way to the best of my ability and the realm that I can help you. Good night, everyone. God bless.